Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to In the Ladies' Room with Nikki and Michelle. I'm technically challenged today, but I'm gonna get it right in a minute. but good evening, everyone. Please come on into the room, hit like and share. Welcome to In the Ladies' Room with Nikki and Michelle. Come on in the room and bring the men today. We are hoping to have a very lively discussion about loving, respecting, and protecting the Black woman. So I just want you guys to get settled before I play two clips that I want you guys to hear and see. I need to get my screen sharing on. Sorry about that. I should have been ready with that already. But
while you're doing that, Nikki, just a heads up for anybody coming in, if you're using Facebook, when you click on the link, they should ask you, do you want to show your name? That'll help us determine who you are. So if you see that, please take a moment to do that if you are showing up as Facebook user instead of by your name.
Okay. So with that said, we're just going to get started with these two clips that I have, and then we'll begin the discussion. And then I have a wonderful surprise for you ladies, okay? Well, here we go with the first clip.
I hope you can see it. Got into a verbal dispute with a 31-year-old woman outside of a liquor store last Monday night. The time 5:52 p.m. on West 128th Street near Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Police say two of the men kicked the victim multiple times. The man in the red jacket then, according to police, bit the victim on her forehead. Police say the trio then stole the victim's iPhone 11, valued at $750. The victim was taken by EMS to Harlem Hospital to be treated for a bite mark with broken skin to the face, pain, and bruising.
I think what they did was horrible. No one should be treated like that. That's totally disrespectful.
I'm going to go to the next clip.
We can't pressure around this motherfucker. Bitch definitely gonna get sweated around this motherfucker. Yeah, bitch, you came with a circle full of pimps. Bitch, you finna get it too, ho. Oh, the bitch made it through. She made it through. She broke through the barrier. Hold on, ho. It's some pressure being applied.
That second one, I'm not sure if you were able to see it, but I could give you a brief detail about it. I got to get this screen sharing thing back together. But anyway, the topic is love, respect, protect the Black woman. The first clip is a clip of a news report that was in the news this week about a young woman who had been assaulted by three young African-American males outside of a liquor store in Harlem. The second clip is a clip of a young woman who was trying to pay for her gas at the gas pump. I'm not sure what state that was. I'm thinking it was in Georgia, but don't take my word for it because I have to go back and reread that clip because it was old. It's from the summer, so I don't remember exactly what state. However, those two clips are two clips in which we see African-American men disrespecting Black women. So the question that I have for Black men tonight, and I hope they will come into the room and join the discourse, is where is the love, the respect, and protect of Black women? Who will stand up and protect us? And what does that look like for you as men? And what does that look like, or what is it that we are looking for as women to be protected by men? We have a special guest with us this evening, Mr. Rashad Carter, who is a native of Passaic, New Jersey, graduated with his degree in sociology and a minor in human relations. upon his graduation, decided to come back to Passaic and teach and coach football and track. He then, with his wife Carmen, decided to move to Houston, Texas, where he resides now. He and his wife have been in a wonderful, loving 18-year marriage where they have 2 beautiful children, and he is currently an executive key account specialist for Johnson & Johnson. So tonight I would please have you to welcome, respect, and love Mr. Rashard Richard Carter.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We need the sound effect.
Yeah, we need a clap. We got to get one.
Yes. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to being a part of this discussion. I think it's something that's definitely much needed, not only in our community, but also for the world to see, so they can understand just the importance of the Black woman.
Yeah, I'm going to put this other overlay up. I really hate to put this one up, but the other overlays don't account for 3 people, so I'll put this one up. So without further ado, let's get this conversation started. I'm sorry, wait. With further ado, let's just say hello to our early birds who have come into the room: Shalane, Nicole, Kashima, Heather, and Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is, but that's fine, quite all right. Enjoy your anonymity while you comment in the room here. Michelle,
welcome, ladies. Happy birthday, Heather, again. Just excited to be here. Look, I'm ready to get this conversation going. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's do this.
Okay, so you must have.
I can't wait to hear from Rashard. I'm excited about this.
Before Rashard starts, I have to say that the main reason that I was looking to reach out to Mr. Carter to join us in this discussion is because, of course, he may not have known me, but I've known him and his family for quite some time because, like I said, he is a native of Passaic. But over the summer, I watched he has his own video podcast, him and a couple of other gentlemen who had been talking about how they move inside their marriages. And it was one of the best, most respectful, most loving discourses I've ever heard around Black men being married. So I wanted him and his thoughts and his opinions, and even share with him how he goes about loving and respecting his queen. And maybe some of us will gain some insight and learn some lessons on how to do that. So welcome, Mr. Carter.
Thank you so much. First of all, I appreciate you for watching. I think we did have a lot of people who really enjoyed that video that we did. And to be honest, it was something that was thought of while I was running. I was just running, and then I stopped, and I called one of my good friends, Ty Bradshaw, who's another native of Passaic. And I was like, you know what? We talk a lot about just relationships in general, in regards to marriage and just us as men growing up, being kids to now being a man and dealing with, our kids and all of that. And I was like, we need to get all the brothers on here and have an open discussion about loving our wives. And one of the greatest part of it, and I think you would agree, Nikki, is that we all had different aspects of what we thought love was, but how we all used it in our own relationships and how we learned from the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I think that's something that really needed to be heard for individuals who are thinking about being married, those who are married, maybe those who are thinking about leaving a marriage, because I think we've all been in situations where we woke up one morning and was like, man, what am I doing? Good or bad? And I think it helps a lot, at least in my world, to have brothers that are in my circle that can say, I've been there and have been vulnerable enough to speak their truth without feeling as if they're going to be judged. And I think that's, to be honest, in our community, especially with Black men, sometimes that becomes very difficult because you just don't know how it's going to be perceived from the individuals that you do call friends.
Right. Do you think that overall there's a blanket stigma where Black men, if they show any form of affection or vulnerability, is a sign somehow of weakness? Because I think that's the huge misconception that we need to do away with.
Right. I think we do need, I don't know if it's a blanket, right? I think there's a part of it where sometimes we don't know how to show affection. And I'll be the first to acknowledge my own self in regards to that. My wife is from a family that's very touchy-feely, hugs and show expression that way, cuddling and things of that. My family wasn't necessarily like that. We showed it by being present in someone's, activities. So for me, being in high school, playing sports, my parents never missed a game, never missed a PTO, never, they were always involved, never missed a birthday or whatever. And that's how they expressed their love. But we wasn't a family where you walked in and everybody just hug everybody, kiss everybody. And I said, even in our discussion, that I don't know, I could probably count on both hands, maybe a little bit more, of how many times I've heard my mother say, like, I love you, right? And so my wife's family, they say it every time they get on the call and when they hang up the call, right? And I think as men, sometimes we don't learn how to do that. So we're never taught that way. And many of us have never seen that from our parents. Now we're married or in a relationship. And to be honest, many of us are taught by someone who may not have a healthy relationship. Maybe we're taught by the music we listen to. Maybe we're taught by the movies we watch. Maybe we talked about a perception of what somebody is showing us, but not showing us the real reality. And I think that all plays into our relationships, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that's what kind of waters it down. I think the only way we can get out of that is having discussions like this, where people are able to be open and honest about what they need, about what they want, and then how can we overcome those boundaries or those blocks that are in front of us so that we can express it. I don't know if it's so much, I think you do have a great point about showing weakness. What our boys always taught, you better not cry. Aren't you a big boy? All of those things in us at an early age. And then when you get into a relationship and them emotions coming and you like, let me hold it together, let me hold it, instead of realizing that this is my girl. And if I cry, she's going to be there to wipe my tears, because I believe, like my wife has told me, like, I'm supposed to be there for you. Not nobody else. It's supposed to be me that wipe your tears. And when you fall, for me to lift you up. And I think we need to be able to understand that with our mate or with the Black women that are in our lives.
That's such a wonderful I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words, but what I really wanted to say and ask is when thinking about, because I love the way you ended that by saying not only the mates in your life, but the women in your life, the women in your community, because I feel like there's a big breakdown where young men are creating these like side mob type of mentalities amongst each other that is not respectful of women. And then who is in that group that would be strong enough within the group to say, this is not right. This is not the way we treat women, no matter who the woman is. It could be just like the woman at the gas station. This is not the way we treat women. Why are we all deciding that, okay, if one of us is going to harass the woman, that we're all going to join in that mob and harass the woman along with that one, instead of pulling that one to the side, because I'm sure that there was more of them than the one. If the three just stopped the one, that would not have happened. So
Absolutely.
That's kind of where my mind is like, why are these men not stopping each other from creating violence for women in these communities?
So you bring up an interesting point for me, Nikki, because it's troublesome. It's troubling to me that you know, you have all these brothers out here that want to talk about they black queen, they this, that, and the other, right? It's a little bit of a movement. And while I embrace it and I appreciate it, there's still far too many that's doing the opposite. And I mean, you can see that just on the video clips that we just saw. Why is this okay? And I realize that's part of your point, Nikki, right? So who's going to be among them strong enough? But why is that okay? What is happening amongst our brothers, if you have any insight on that, Rashad, that says it's okay to mistreat black women? I really want to know where that's coming from.
I think a big part, at least, I mean, one of the things that has helped me, like, really understand just my impact across the board is who I hang around with. You know, I mean, I think early on in my life, I've learned this, you know, going back to even, you know, like I said, and I mean early as in elementary, going into high school or middle school to high school, is that I knew there were things in my life that I wanted to achieve. And I knew at an early age that there were certain people in my life that didn't want to achieve those same things. And so I had to distance myself. And I don't mean distance as in like I turned my back towards them, but I just realized that we were moving in two different ways. And I think that you find out that I say this when I mentor kids a lot. I think when you look at people that are in the streets, they respect people who are just in the streets. The people that they disrespect are the people that have 1 foot in the streets and 1 foot out of the streets. And it's almost like, you know, not to sound churchy, but it's like what it says in scripture. It's like God spits out lukewarm, you know, like he wants you either going to be black or white. There is no time for gray. And I think too many of us want to be in that gray area. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to be able to pick a side. And what I mean by that is that, you know, my dad always taught me as a man is you make a decision and you stick with it, good or bad. And I think as you get older and you grow, you learn right from wrong. And so I bring that back to when you're talking about how many people are still, many men are still listening to and doing things that they did when they were younger. I mean, there were songs I used to listen to and say things and do things when I was younger that I don't do no more. And I think the concept of having a group of circle of individuals that are going to hold you accountable. So even with myself, going back to, and I never want to speak for Black America, right? Because my wife always taught me when she got her PhD, I used to always come to her and say like, well, most people, and she's like, you don't know most people. Okay, so the people I know, right? So let me throw it down. So I like to say it in this term, Michelle, is that one of the things I like to do is that earlier on, when going back to the infection part and supportive of your wife, I thought I was in a level of I'm doing enough. And she was like, I need more. And I'm like, I'm doing enough. I ain't out in these streets. I ain't doing this. I ain't doing, we good. But I wasn't necessarily being good for her. And it wasn't until my boys grabbed me through conversations and was like, dude, you can do more. You can hold hands. You can take her out. You can not hang with us and you can hang with her. And that opened me up. So I go back and say a lot has to do with their surroundings. And I think many of us as young men and as older men got to kick away some of our habits that we've been holding on to forever because we got to grow up. And I think if we grow up, then we'll begin to treat the women like the way they're supposed to be treated. Because I think growing up, as you all know, in Passaic, there was ways in which we were taught on how to treat women when we seen them. You know, I remember what should have been said. I remember if I'm about to curse and somebody walked past as a woman, oh, excuse me, my bad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Even if I didn't know them, because it's just what you're supposed to do. And I think we got to go back to that. And I think we got to be able to hold ourselves accountable to that.
Right.
I want to start with taking some of the comments. Marvin Allen says, me personally, I think the men, I think the men think it's okay because the women are not respecting themselves. What do you say to that?
Woo, that's tough, right? I think it's a two-way street. I think you heard, you know, as many, if you all have children or, you know, y'all women, whether you got them or not, I know you don't raise some kids. I think we also go out and tell people that in order to receive respect, you got to show respect, right? But I challenge my men a little bit deeper than that, man. I look at us and say, you know what? Even if somebody don't respect themselves, maybe if you show them respect, they'll begin to respect themselves. And I think that is definitely with our young women. I think as a young man, if a young lady is thinking her image of what she sees on television should be her image and what she displays walking down the street, I think if you hold yourself to a higher standard as a king, then if you show her what a king is supposed to look like, then she'll address herself as a queen if she wants to be with a king.
Right.
But if she's not showing queen, queen characteristics, and then you're trying to get on that queen, then maybe you got to check yourself because maybe you're not displaying king characteristics. My wife always tells me, I'm going to follow you. You're the head of this house. And if you're not willing to lead, then, this house can't make it. God has put you in. I think for us as men, I think if we display a certain characteristics, our women will follow. So I agree with what Marvin said as well. There's a part of it, but maybe I just put more ownership on us as Black men, as leaders of our houses and our community, to truly display what God has called us to be. And I think if we're showing ourselves accordingly, then our women will follow the same lead.
I agree.
My opinion.
Michelle, you want to read this or you want me to get it? My thing
is, as a man, I love to be affectionate, and more especially with the person that you love. But everyone, sometimes they're not into that. Everyone grew up different, maybe never had that love growing up. So it's tough when it comes to some women not accepting love and affection, and also the brothers as well. But I think Rashard kind of already touched on that, right? I think he was saying, we have different experiences growing up. And then when we try to come together, they don't always communicate. And it's interesting, right? I'm kind of glad you brought that point back up because, you've been saying so much stuff, Rashard. I had to resort to taking notes because I didn't want to miss nothing, right? So when you see me look away, I'm taking notes, my brother. So what's interesting to me about that is the fact that what I keep hearing in my spirit, if you will, it goes back to communication. It goes back to communication, communicating with our peers, communicating with each other, communicating with our spouses, communicating with, women, communicating with men, and understanding a new, I hate to call it a trendy item, we'd like to talk about understanding each other's love languages. When you talked about like what your wife needed, right? That's what she needed to feel good in the relationship. And so if that's what it requires, that's what you have to do. I think we have to get away from getting hung up on I ain't going to be doing this and I ain't going to be doing that. It's about building on your relationship. Right. So sometimes you have to do what's necessary in order to get the outcome that you're looking for. If you want a successful relationship, you want a successful marriage, sometimes you have to do things to get there. It requires work. For
Absolutely.
sure.
And I think you gotta know yourself too, right? Like I had to face up with what, as you said, love language. And I'm open to this. This is something that we did in our marriage when we had rocky moments. Went to counseling. And then there was a time where I stood up and went to counseling by myself, not with her, just me. And I went because I felt as if I needed to figure out more about me so I can be the best me for her.
Right.
And I think that's another thing that many times, especially in our community, feel like we don't need to go talk to somebody or we don't need to go out and take that next step. And it helped me out a lot. And when we went together as a group, it also had an individual in there to be able to talk about those love languages. So maybe if I wasn't saying it the right way, you had this other individual say, well, you say it this way. Say that again.
I said you absolutely were. And I think the way that you said it was perfect, and clearly it spoke to me. It resonated to me because it triggered that thought in my mind. So, I thought that was awesome. Michael Thompson.
Yeah.
Michael Thompson says, I was raised up to always treat women with respect and to protect the women in my family and women as a whole. But I'm a 68 baby. These things was instilled in us back then. Today, we as a people are so far removed from the teachings of our parents and grandparents.
So with that said, I want to broaden the conversation a little bit more to more of a community type of love, respect, and protection. I'm wondering if you guys think or believe that we might possibly need to get back to doing more mentorship in our communities. What does it look like for us to be able to pass down these past legacies that kind of had somewhat of a break between generations? Because nowadays I don't really see the younger adults respecting the old traditions and how we were brought up and taught to respect women regardless, so what do you guys think about that?
I think it's modeling. I think it's living by example.
See, but the thing I have about the living by example is you have to always remember that there is a big segment of society who do not have those I don't want to say the because I don't want to make examples. It seem, but they just don't have that kind of guidance. They don't have people in their lives to show them the straight and narrow, which way to walk, how to be. They don't have it. So are we responsible then for those of us who think we do of creating spaces where they could get that kind of modeling? Because I'm a firm believer that you have, like you said, Michelle, you have to model those behaviors. But if people are not getting those experiences, where can they go to get those experiences on an ongoing basis? Because to have an experience of respect, it can't be just a one-time thing and then that's it. It has to be a continual so that they really get the picture. Repetition is how we learn best. So are we as African Americans falling down on the job of providing spaces for Black men to have those experiences?
I think overall, I would say that we have to be very deliberate in exactly that, right? Like, I think certain times there's certain things that we mask over certain things. Like when we come together, it's almost like a gumbo. You throw all of these things into it, and then it's like, what percentage is that part what you're talking about taking care of our Black queens? Is it 10%? Is it 20? Is it 7? I think deliberately we need to be able to start at a young age, to really understand how we value one another. And I think first, as a young man, I think it needs to start with us understanding when we have, like my son who's 7, letting him understand exactly who he is and why he should feel valued. And then in that same grasp, what we do is he has an older sister, Amari, my daughter, who's 13. There's certain things we don't allow him to do to her, right? Like you don't call her names. And I know it sounds real elementary, but there's certain things myself and my wife do not allow him to do because we don't even want that trait stuck in his head. So as he's getting older, he remembers, hey, this is how I treat my sister. This is how I treat my mother. This is how he sees my dad treat my mother. And those things are embedded in him as he's going up. But also what is major, we surround our kids with people like us. So when they're looking at us, the norm is when they go by Uncle Jared and Uncle Ty and Uncle Ken and Uncle Percy and Uncle Damon and Uncle Tyrone, they see the same thing. So my whole network of friends are very similar to how we raise our household, and they live similar ways. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, I believe it starts with at home. It starts with us starting at a young age and then pouring into them exactly how they should treat themselves. Also, we need to know how they treat others, especially our young women. We can't allow them to think that that's cute. it's another. Let me throw another little tad thing that I get upset with too. Is really, upset. I was gonna say another word. But really upset is I get upset with how we throw so much stuff on our social media pages that show that total opposite of that. You know, like you'll get a million likes of someone showing somebody fighting or cussing somebody out or doing stuff that don't necessarily represent our culture. It may be a small number, but it don't represent the masses. Black is beautiful in all terms. And I think we need to be able not to glorify that and not be a part of it. If you look at my social media page, I don't talk nothing about just love, either my family or my friends or encouragement, because I don't know who's watching. And I want whoever is watching me and whatever I'm doing, that they feel good about themselves so that they can go out and be the best that they can be. And I think if we're able to eliminate that and understand the power of the platforms our kids have at this early age and what they can direct and pour into people, how much greater we can be. And not use that platform. Because think about the kids we know that are teenagers, they got 10,000 people liking them and all of this. So imagine if they flip that and show just how beautiful we are as a people, we can change this environment. I always say Jesus and 12 disciples changed the world. What can the thousands and thousands of us do if we use the platforms that we have where we can truly show just how beautiful we are as a people? Sorry, that's my only soapbox. I hate people using social media to tear us down. And I think sometimes we tear ourselves down way more than others do. And I hate it, really hate it.
Right. And you also, that brings me to another point that interests me, right? So how much of this, because we touched on earlier, Marva said specifically about women not respecting themselves. So, men feel like they have carte blanche to treat them anyway. But how many of us also feel like there's that social media piece, right? And particularly when it comes to our children, they watching the video vixens and how they get treated. I ain't gonna lie, I was a big, wanna rumble with the bee, huh? Back in the day, I was a crazy little Kim fan, but I also knew the difference. So I think the concern again, and to your point, Nikki, is there's one thing to know the difference, right? I knew that this was just a video, but I also came from a household that taught me very different. I had elders in my life, who always were quick, to call me on the carpet if it was necessary. No, you don't do that. You don't do this. You don't do the other thing. A lot of that is lacking. So now it seems like a lot of our children are being guided by things like social media, what they see on videos, he don't love me if he not buying me something, and all these other things that have nothing to do with a real relationship. So what do you say about that experience?
Man, I think it's TV, right? It's like I think first of all, we definitely. I mean, I just remember growing up, I couldn't even look at Dallas, or Dynasty, but kissing and stuff or whatever. My parents were like, "No, you ain't looking at that," So I think one of the things that I always say this to my daughter, I love about her is she's a 13-year-old, but she's very immature. And I say this in this regards is that she doesn't like the sassiness of this. Like she just want to be a kid. And we love it so much because we want her just to be a kid, because we've seen other kids at 13 act growner than my wife, who's 47, and I'm like, man, well, I think that's a product of being parents. And once again, your surroundings. I agree. We can't allow our kids to grow up faster than what they should be. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why there's a PG-13. There's a reason why there's, disclaimers on what they should watch, when they should watch, and things of that nature. And I think we as not only parents and educators and everybody involved, community leaders, we need to really hold them accountable to that. And we need to really realize that their brains are not shaped and molded to take on the stuff that's looking at a screen or what they're looking at a screen. And I think that has a major impact on why you see these kids on here that look like they got more swag than the greatest rapper at an early age, because that's all they're looking at. So imagine if the time they spent looking at that type of stuff and looked at something that can pour into their mind. Imagine how great. I'm not even talking about athletes. I'm talking about education, like doctors, lawyers, councilmen, presidents, all of that. there are so many things our kids can become if we as the parents in the community stop them from going one way and detour them into another way. Because we got some fantastic people doing some great things. The problem is our kids just don't know about it because we're allowing them to look at something that they shouldn't be looking at that age.
That reminds me so much. I'm here tickled to myself. I remember years ago. I mean, I don't even remember how old my son was, but it's when his first brought this Grand Theft Auto. It's like a video game. Some, my kids were. When the kids came over, I loved it. They would go down to the basement. I'd cook for them. They'd be down there hanging, doing whatever. And I went down there and saw him watching that video one day. You wasn't talking about getting them. I got them. I said, "Don't you ever bring this game into my house." And I was hoping that whoever bought it, that their parents didn't let them watch it either. But they couldn't bring that to my house. They couldn't watch that in my house. And I'm always cognizant of the fact that, because my saying, he who controls the images controls the mind. And once you control somebody's mind, you control their body. So you have to be very careful about what you intake into your body through visual and audio means.
Right.
So, I mean, I've always been one of the people. I'm like you. Now, I do a lot of politics on my page and a lot of stuff that may not be necessarily positive, but I never do anything that degrades our race. Because I've been telling people, please stop. I don't want to see fighting. If you got fighting, black people fighting on your page, if you friend me and I go through your page and see that, I'm not accepting it.
Same here. I saw something real quick. I thought this actually what I saw. So yesterday, this is the first time. It's crazy. Don't judge me on this. First time we took my son to go get his haircut since COVID hit, like since March of last year, just because we just been anti-COVID and hoping everybody mask up and take care of themselves. But the barber we went to, he was talking to me, and he has two sons. One son, or he has three altogether, but one son is a fighter jet pilot in the Air Force. And the other son, I don't know if the right terminology is, but he's a captain of a submarine in the Navy.
Wow.
And I was sitting there, and my son, who's 7, was listening, and he was like, man, your son flies jets, and your other son drives submarines? You can do that? And that just, once again, blows my mind. Here's this young black kid, 7, hearing a black man talk about his 2 black kids, one flying jets and the other one doing a submarine. And my son, I see his head, thinking like, and as we're walking out, he was like, so I can do that, huh? Absolutely, son. That's the impact that we have on our people. When they hear that we can do something from people that look like them, then automatically they say, then me too, I can do it too. And I think that's what we need to continue to do more and more with our kids.
Absolutely.
I agree. Michelle, you want to take Michael's comment?
Our greatest battle with loving, caring, and protecting the black women is hip hop culture. Sorry to sound old and opinionated, but there's a large percentage of black men trying to emulate what they hear and see in these videos. For instance, calling the black woman the B word was elevated to the 10th power by black men when the FCC allowed profanity in videos. Just my opinion, but it has some truth to it. That's what we're talking about.
I totally agree with that.
I agree. I think there's a lot of times you could tell your story and not have to knock or take down your own race. There's ways in which become more creative. I tell my kids all the time is that there's no need to use curse words. Just expand your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Learn ways to speak without doing that. And I think that as like I said, going back to get older. As you get older, you understand the impact of the words that come out of your mouth. You understand the impact of your decisions. It's not just about me. It's about the other brothers and sisters who see me, who may look up to me and I don't even realize it. So I got to be able to be more accountable, not only to the people in my circle, but the people outside of my circle. That's how I look at Passaic. I looked at the Mr. Creaches and the Mr. Everett and the Mr. Johnsons from Second War. All of these individuals, you've always seen them in a presence that made me feel good to be a black man. And I always thought that that was my opportunity whenever I became of their age to emulate the same thing. And I think we just need more people to continue to do that because I think kids are always watching. They want to grab onto somebody. And I think it's just up to us to really, and I'm not saying we got to be perfect. You know, I'm far from perfect, far from perfect. But what I try to do is to try to not make the same mistake every day.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the word you said a little bit earlier before we got on, the word corny, and how some people see that living a straight life seem to be corny in some ways.
No.
I mean, how would you dispel that myth?
Man, corny. That's, I mean, a straight life. Oh man, I joke about corny. Like I like saying that, you know, I gotta, you know, but I joke and say if corny is, you know, I went to a great university on a full football scholarship, played around the whole United States in front of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individuals. I was able to be on television, have an opportunity to go to the NFL, married, you know, my college sweetheart, have two beautiful kids over 19, move into Houston and live in this beautiful home with beautiful things. God, I help. I mean, if that's corny, then sign me up for corny all day, every day. You know, have somebody that loves me for me, despite me being me, even when I wasn't lovable. Yeah, for that any day. You know, and I think that it is once again going back to what are you showing or what are you visualizing as success? Like that's a big one. Understanding what is success. You know, I think as we all get older, especially in this COVID time, shoot, waking up the next day is successful. You know, because we know there's a lot of individuals who don't lay down and didn't get up. So I think that's somebody that you know got your back. That's success. You know, and I think having a group of friends that you can call on, that you can count on, that will be there for you. And I call on my firefighter friends because the reason I use that analogy is the only people that's willing to go into a burning building when it's about to burn down and they risk their lives are firemen. Everybody else trying to get out. So if you find you some friends who are like firemen and firewomen, then that's who you want in your corner. And I believe my number one firefighter is my wife. And then I look at just the group of friends that I have from growing up all the way to my friends that I made in college to the friends I have now in Houston, Texas, are individuals that I truly believe, you know, want the best for me. So I think sometimes corny is good. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
I take corny.
Corny make you sleep good at night too.
Wow,
that's the other part I want. Corny make you sleep. You snoring, slob coming down. You know you good and bundled up. That's what corny do for you.
It's funny that you would say that. I swear you taking. It's like we have some kind of symbol. I can't remember the name, but it's like you're reading my mind because as you're telling that story, I'm thinking about a time, you know, back in the day, we lived a little closer to the streets, so to speak. You know, my husband used to like to gamble, and then one day he just cold turkey stopped gambling. But his friends will always come to the door, ringing my doorbell, and you know, if you know me, you know my mouth. They would ring the doorbell looking for him to go out and gamble. I'm like, don't come to my door with that. You know what?
Right.
We don't do that here in this house. And then there was another time one came to visit. My son was upstairs hanging out in the house. It was summertime, but it was starting to get dark and he was still a little boy. And that same friend says, why you got this boy cooking? Let him go outside and do it, play out and whatever. But at that time it was late. The kids out there was up to no good. I said, no, he's staying in the house. He's fine here because I'm not raising somebody to hang up, you know, to stand against a building. And guess what? Don't come to my house knocking on my door looking for my husband to gamble because when we go to sleep and go to bed at night, I want that go to bed at night to be peaceful and restful. I don't want nobody knocking on my door for no BS. Not you, cops, nobody else. That's, you know, a corny life. It ain't corny. That's just the thing that, you know, we laughing about the word because we had mentioned it early. Right. But that's not corny. That is the way to live where you don't have to worry about people knocking your door in, somebody looking for you because you owe them something or they owe you something. That's just no life to live, and I want the kids to understand and know that. But anyway, I went off on a.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Read Rodney's.
My man, Rodney.
Hip hop has been corrupted. We created it, but we don't control how it's amplified. When the Sugar Hill Gang says she wanted to go to bed, the radio version blew the whistle over the word bed.
Right. That's exactly true.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Well, it goes back to what Nikki's saying. When you control the narrative, right, you control the mind.
But that was the thing. We started out controlling the narrative, and then the media took the narrative away from us and did something totally different with it. And for money, we sold ourselves out and wind up allowing our music and because hip hop is not just music, it's a whole culture, but it was allowed to be corrupted for money's sake, and then that culture wind up corrupting the actual people, not just the people inside the culture, but the people in general. But our people, as usual, whenever things are happening that's wrong, we suffer the most. So that's kind of what happened with hip hop.
I have another question for Rashad. You want me to get this? You want me to get this?
Yeah, go ahead.
My household, us, not allowed to use the N-word, never have. They will call each other Moors. Every kid that has entered my home laughed at first, but no to use that word in my home.
That's good program.
Beautiful.
So I'm just thinking, so we watched these two video clips, right, at the beginning of this conversation. And the first one was with the young lady who was in a liquor store. And from what I understand from the clip, they were at first trying to talk to her, and I think she rejected them.
Yes.
And then that's when things went left. My question for you is, how much of you do you think also could be some level of insecurity on the men's part, like that feeling of being rejected? And so now I'm pissed off, and now, you a B, you a H, you a this, you a that, I'm calling you every name in the book because now you rejected me. Like, is the consideration that had that gone differently, had she responded to their advances, they would have responded differently? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think you're 100% right. On one end is that one, it's, you always hear it, manhood, right? Don't disrespect me, don't definitely disrespect me around my boys or disrespect me around individuals. Now I got to be able to show I'm a man, or I got to do this. And then it escalates into something else, right? So I think that one is a major image of immaturity for one. And I can speak on this because I used to, be in that guy in regards to I want to fight or whatever. But you feel like you got to defend yourself. And I can even say early in marriage, you feel like, man, I'm this individual, treat me as this individual. And I was the smallest individual mentally and weak for trying to display that image, And then I think on the flip side of it is, I think when you ask, like, would it have been different if she would have accepted his advances, right? It might have been different at that point, but eventually his character would have come out. So it might not have been date number one, but then you would have seen, as I like to say, when people first get into relationships, they represent their representative. Certain things, if you've been in a deep relationship, certain things you don't do in the beginning.
Right.
But then as you start getting comfortable, they start seeing you without your makeup. They start seeing you without your haircut. They start seeing you, without your, whatever it may be. And then, you're like, this is who I am. And I think of an individual that's able to treat someone like that, then I think that one, they've probably done it before. Two, they'll probably do it again. And three, that is who they could be at that moment. And I'm not saying people can't change and people don't find ways to grow. But I think in that situation, that would be just my assumption. I could be totally wrong. He may have just had a moment at that point. But I think also if the characteristics that he was displaying, that ain't the first time he did that. That ain't the first time he said that. And I think that later on, even if she would have given the phone number or had a conversation with him, eventually, if she would have said no to something later on, then I would imagine he would have called her out in her name. And that's what.
So I just want to put a different spin on that same question that Michelle had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, specifically to that particular clip, because what it said is that the community really riled around this young woman after the incident, because I mean they really beat her up bad. She had bandages and scars all over her face. She was really beaten up bad. And some of the community members found one of the offenders and beat him up bad. So now I don't really you know, promote violence or think that that should have happened. But I'm wondering if the fact that the community supported her in that way, and even though I don't agree with the way they held him accountable, but they did hold him accountable. What do you think about that kind of a reaction to what happened to her? And would that help to stop them from behaving that way, or people in the community from behaving that way if they know they're going to be accountable?
Man, I think so. I think so. I'm with you. I don't necessarily believe in violence or want to go out and say we should, you know, go out and take, you know, acts into our own hands. But I'm also willing to say that the world we live in now, we need to govern ourselves accordingly. I think there are certain things in our communities that we let slide that we shouldn't. And I'm not saying you gotta, you know, something go wrong, you gotta go become the police and everybody else. But I think there are things going back to, we need to protect our own. We need to be able to make sure that we feel safe in our community. And I think if somebody treats somebody in our community or done something in our community, especially to our women or our children, that they need to be dealt with or being able to be prosecuted to the highest degree. That's just my own opinion, because I believe if we don't take care of ourselves, then surely we can't expect nobody else to do it. Right. I mean, if that we go into the political side of it, when we look at, hey, we need the black agenda and all, I agree. Yeah, there needs to. But there's also some things where we got to hold some people accountable straight up in our own community instead of waiting for others to jump into our community to put law and order into place. And I think once we do that, then we can show the power that we have. I mean, heck, we just saw it in this latest election. I'm not the political one, but we saw the masses of what Georgia, Atlanta, and that area, how it just, you know, shifted power from one to the other. Whatever side you want to be on, them individuals shifted power. And that once again just tells us how powerful we can be when we all come together on one accord. And I think if we can do it on the political side, then surely we can do it in regards to uplifting and encouraging one another for the better of our people. And that's what I wish we would do more of it, because we do stand a better chance when we're all together like this than when we're all like that.
Yeah, I've been preaching that since this whole, I mean, Nikki and I have done so many shows and been on other shows talking about the whole political stuff. And I've been saying since day one, we are just better together. We better together. And so I agree wholeheartedly. I want to make sure we don't miss this. One of our followers wants to see the rest of your shirt when you get a chance.
Don't go ahead. Let me guide. Because I wanted him to end with that. Because I want him to see everybody.
Oh, okay. Right, people tend to put on their representatives and then their mask falls off and true colors are home.
Wow, that's something. You know, that you can even look at that sometimes with marriage, right? I think everybody want to have a nice wedding, but many people don't want to be married. You know what I mean? It's like we want the 5-hour event, but we don't want to stay together for 5 years. And I think that you can look at that in regards to just a lot. It's like we want to put on this image. You know, it's like, man, why do we need to put on an image when everybody want to be like us? Exactly. You know, just be you. Just be you. Be who you are. It's okay. And I think the more you're able to be who we are, when people are able to see your true colors, I just think we can gravitate to that. Because I think when we walk in and act like we're a perfect being, that's when people are like, oh, I can't be like her, I can't be like him. But when they see you able to make a mistake and get back up, that's encouragement. Like, oh, Nikki fell, but Nikki got back up. Michelle tripped, but she got back up. Not only did Nikki and Michelle fall, Rashard helped them back up. You know, Rashard fell. Nikki didn't talk about him behind his back. Nikki lifted him up. You know, Rashard had some issues, but Michelle was right there to say, how can I help? When we look back, my dad told me this when he came from Georgia to Passaic. He was like, the big thing was his mom and family paid for him to come up and was like, here, you stay with us until you get yourself together, and then boom, go out and get a family or whatever. I think it showed that togetherness. And there's a lot of cultures who do that still today.
Thinking that.
And that's why we see more of these Mexican restaurants, Chinese restaurants, and all that, because they are able to bring their resources together, because they understand we are better like this than we like that. And I think the more that we don't even have to learn from them. We can learn from our own people, because that's what we started with. That's what we did, you know, from way before our times. But we somewhat put that mask on, like whoever wrote that, and felt like, oh, I got here on my own. Who I am today without Passaic. And I mean Passaic as a whole, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I think so many of us leave or stay and forget that foundation that made us who we are.
Exactly. I think that you were saying something, Michelle?
No, I'm preach. That's what I was saying. Preach.
Right. Because I think if we could get back to that, you know, having to ask or request that we be respected and loved in a way that honors us would almost disappear, because if we got back to the ways in which we were originally anyway, then it would be an automatic. It wouldn't have to be a question of whether Black women would be safe in their own communities. There used to be a time, I know I tell a lot of times about how my uncles used to be, you know, addicts, and they were out there. But I remember back in the day when they would do certain things or whatever they was out there doing in the streets, all those little criminals in the streets, whether it was them or whoever they was out there in the streets with, they all had a code that you did not mess with the Black women or the children. That's just it was a given, even for criminals. But nowadays it's like the wild, wild west. You almost feel accosted walking from one block to the other in the hood when men period, because it don't necessarily mean that just Black men are disrespecting us. Almost any and everybody. Malcolm X said the most respected woman in America is the Black woman.
The most disrespected.
No, I'm sorry, the most disrespected woman is the Black woman. And what we're asking as Black women is, okay, could we at least get Black men to come to our defense, to be on our side, to help us when we in those situations when we need that kind of protection?
I think, can I just say this? I do believe, Nikki, that there are way more that are like myself and your families who love and support our people. I think the problem is, one, going back to how you about the media, they display, you know, what they want to display. They don't sell, you know, ads of the beauty that we believe our Black women are. So they don't want to display that. And they only want to display, you know, us being, you know, not like who we should be. But in that same breath, we as Black men definitely have to take control of the situation to be able to show the honor and the respect that our women and women of all deserve. But it starts with home. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I love everybody, but I'll be lying to you and say if I don't love my people more than I love anybody else. You know, and it starts with me loving my mama, grandmama, wife, kids, and everybody else that's in our circle and surrounding circle. And I believe we need to do that more often.
I think that's the part that really infuriates me too, because these brothers come from Black women. And then to turn around and disrespect another Black woman is just so infuriating to me.
Right.
I have witnessed my mom and Paul taking people into their home until they get on their feet or get their own homes. Here in Georgia, not wanting or asking for anything, just saying they wanted a change was enough for
That's
them.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
So that's what we have to do, I think, as a people, is kind of go back to our old ways and to kind of piggyback off of what you just said. I think that maybe we could start our own campaign and do like you do. Stop allowing, us to feed into those negative stereotypes in the media, and stop sharing it on our platforms. Stop talking about it. Stop ingesting it. Stop allowing others to bring it around us and our families. Because I'll have to be the first to admit, when the Housewives came out, and Michelle, you could be a witness for me. When the Housewives first came out, I hated that show. I mean, I absolutely hated it. I hated when people talked about it, because when I watched it and saw how disrespectful these Black women were treating each other, I didn't want no parts of it. But as my friends always came talking about it, and I just wind up wanting to be a part of the conversation. So I started watching it, and before you know it, I'm watching it on the regular. Until this season, I finally got fed up with the Housewives of Potomac, and I just can't bother. But what I'm saying, and that I'm saying that just to say that sometimes we have to stand our ground, even with our friends, and not even allow certain things to come into your into the image, that some certain images to come into your purview. That's what I mean. I'm so out of breath, I can't even think. But that's what I'm saying, that we really, really got to get back to. We really got to get back to loving and respecting ourselves. And with that said, and us running out of time, I want you to really show and explain that T-shirt. You got to do it.
Okay. So my wife has, so what it says is, but please her, protect her, respect her, love her, and support her. And so my wife has the same shirt that says, please him, protect him, respect him, love him, support him. And I think this is something, and I'll say with growth, is that this was something that I think we got last year or so. But for us to wear that, and for me to wear it, and to be able to display that type of affection, for my wife, is something that I had to learn. It was more than just me talking about it and me feeling it in the inside, but I understood what it meant to her to understand. Let us show the world our love, and let's not keep it in together, behind closed doors. And so what we try to do is to be as honest as we can in regards to our marriage, realizing that we have people that are watching us. And to be honest, that kind of helps us to be able to be the best that we can be, and realize that, what, we got a million people cheering for us. As it says in scripture, that there's a cloud of witnesses that are up above. And both of our parents, my parents have been married, I'm 45, 47 years, and her parents married, I think, 52, 53 years. So together, we got close to 100 years of marriage between our parents. And so we always are talking to them and understanding the ups, the downs, and everything in between. And we're saying if they can make it, then surely we can too.
And I think we have to be more visual about it too, because what we were saying before we got on air, one of my concerns is that people think that Black love and Black families and Black relationships, solid Black relationships, are unachievable. They're unattainable. They don't see it as often. They're not depicted on, TV in ways that we would like. And so I think that for those of us that are, married, we have to really celebrate these things so that other people can understand that this is not unachievable. This is something that you can absolutely have, provided that you are committed to doing the work. So I think that's awesome.
And I'll just leave it this. We're intentional about being happy and having joy in our life. And I want to say that big, because it's not by accident we do the things we do. We are very intentional. And it was a learning experience for us to understand that. And so, like, if you look at us year 1, 2, and 3 to what is now, we're night and day. We're not that person no more. And so I believe that being able to be intentional, like you're saying, and making it a priority for us to be the best that we can be, then it ain't no stopping us, man. We got God first in our lives, surround ourselves with great people, have a little luck in there, a bunch of blessings, and we just gonna keep doing what we can do.
I love it. I think that's like a perfect way to end it, because if there was any way that we could learn to love, respect, and protect Black women, is that we need to be intentional about it, right? I love you so much, Mr. Carter.
Oh man, but I love you all too. I really, before y'all hang up, I just want to say I am such a fan. Before I came on, you know, I follow you, Nikki. I'm not sure if Michelle, if you on social media, I'll follow you as well, and I'll definitely add you. But I just thank you for this platform. I mean, I'm big up in regards to anything that we can do for our people to encourage, uplift, support, all of these things. We need it. Yes. We don't need it now more than ever. I don't know when we're gonna need it. So I salute you too. If there's anything I can do to help you and your platform to encourage and love on people, you just give me a call, email, text, send pigeons with notes on it. Whatever you need to do, I'm willing to be a part of it.
And thank you so much for blessing our platform tonight. You have been beyond incredible. We enjoyed you so much. Please don't be a stranger. And if there's anything that we can do, let us know so we can return the favor also.
I know what I would love to do right now, though, is if you could resend those, you guys had like 3 episodes of that. Mm-hmm. If you could send them to me again so that I could repost them in our group, because I think that's a very necessary visual and a conversation that all of our members need to hear. I appreciate that. And anytime you guys want to come on here and talk about marriage in particular, again, you are always welcome.
I appreciate that. We sure will. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. We'll hold on. You hang out with us, Roger. We just say goodbye to everybody, because again, ladies, you didn't have to do it, but you decided to spend your hour with us, and you could have been doing anything at all, and you hung out with us for this hour. We thank you. We appreciate you, and we hope that you'll come back next week.
Bring a friend.
That's right. Invite some people with you. Like and share. Michelle, final thoughts?
Love you, ladies. You know how we do.
Yes, we love you. Good night.
Good night.